Alright guys, welcome to your next chapter. Let's talk about modifiers. Now modifiers is a very cool way to create some procedural models and create some awesome or custom shapes for your work. So let's see how we can dig into modifiers. So first, let's just create a very simple object. I'm going to start with a cylinder. Here we go. And I'm going to go for a bigger view. Now I'm going to go to modify and reduce the radius. Press F4 on your keyboard so you can see the lines. Now you want to make sure, if you want to bend or deform this object, you want to make sure that there's enough segments in there. If you have less segments, this object cannot deform. Think about it like your fingers. If you look at your own fingers, you will realize there are joints on your fingers, and wherever there's a joint, your finger could bend. So similarly, to bend this object as well, we would need segments in there. So when you increase these segments, this allows us to bend this object from 3 different joints. Okay. Now here is the modifier list, as you can see on my screen where my mouse is. And if I hit this button, you can see there are so many of them. Now you don't have to learn everything, but we're gonna touch a few of them first. So let's start with the simple one. Let's go down and look for a bend option right here. Okay, so how do we access this, or a quick way to access is click on this modifier tab and just type BEND, bend, and you can immediately get this bend modifier. Now, once you apply the bend modifier, you can see your cylinder is at the bottom and your bend modifier is on the top. This is a very non-destructible workflow. You can keep on stacking a lot of modifiers on top and create a whole different object. So let's say, for example, if you want to bend this object, you crank up this angle now, and you can easily bend this object. You can try different directions. So once you give a bend, you can change the direction as well. And you can try different axes. So you have the Z axis. You can also try the Y axis, increase the number, and you will get something like this. Not enough to bend in this direction, so let's try something else. Let's go with the X-axis, and that looks pretty awesome. You kind of get a nice fan, one of those hand Chinese fans. So this is a pretty cool way to create some custom shapes and designs. At any point, if you don't like the modifier, you can turn it off for a few, or turn it on again by using or pressing this icon right here, which is the eye icon. You also have a little triangle button here, which has some hidden menus. We're going to explore that very soon, but let's just stick to the Z axis. Now let me just demonstrate something very important here. Let me go closer. And as you can see, in this object, there is 1, 2, 3 joints, and that allows the object to bend perfectly. Let's just go back down to the cylinder. Now, if I reduce my height segments, you can see the object does not bend properly. It only has 1 single joint, so it bends accordingly. If you even remove that, you will notice that the object does not bend perfectly anymore. It's because there's not enough joints. So once again, if we crank up this number, you will see the bend becomes a lot more smoother and cleaner. And there we have a very decent looking bend on a cylinder. Now let's explore some of the limit options here. When you turn this option on, you might get this really weird artifact, but the beauty about this is you have to push these numbers up, and now you can see you can limit the effect on how much or what area should be having this effect or the bend effect. So let's just start from the lower limit as well, and let's crank in some of this. So you will realize soon that you are able to create a very interesting object that looks like this, like a candy cane. You can crank up this number furthermore to get that perfect bend, and this is what you come up with, a very awesome looking candy cane. So this is how you can use bend modifier. Let's just turn off the limit. Let's just say for now I don't want to use the limit. I want to try working with these gizmos here. So you have gizmo, which allows you to move this entire shape left and right. That allows you to control the radius of the bend. And you also have the center, which you can move around, and you can get some very interesting results. You can move it up and down as well. So you get something like this. My advice would be, if you want to work with this modifier, experiment. That's the best way to go. And you will come up with some very interesting results. Now, as I said, if you don't like a certain modifier, you can even delete them. The delete button is right here. You can just hit that button, make sure you have selected the right modifier, and delete. Now, if let's say you have another object, let's create a pyramid for now. And we are gonna increase some height segments so we can see the results nicely. There. You can also copy this bend modifier simply by right-clicking, copy, select this object, and paste it. So you can share modifiers this way as well, which is very interesting, and you get like these kind of custom shapes done easy and fast. Now, there are many more cool modifiers to look at, so bend is just one of them. You can just delete this. Now, let's explore something else. Let's check out melt modifier. So M-E-L-T, melt. When you go apply this, and as the name suggests, it will melt the object. Now, once again, you have a whole bunch of options here. I would strongly encourage you guys to experiment and see what results you guys come up with. There are some really cool modifiers in here. You don't have to learn all of them right now. You just have to explore a few of them, which will help you create some cool custom shapes. So another one would be noise. So noise modifier is one of my favorite. It helps me create deformed surfaces. So what I mean by that, if I increase this seed, nothing will happen. If I work with scale at the moment, nothing will happen. So let's just start with the strength. Let's crank this number up. And the moment I do that, you will instantly notice that this object starts to deform in a certain way. Okay, you can shoot that up on the y-axis as well. So let's crank this number up. And let's crank this up as well. So you will notice that this has created this weird looking shape, but that's fine for now. This is just for experimental purposes. Just to understand that it pushes the object in different axes. Work with the scale, lower the number, and you will notice instantly this chaos happens. So for that, you might want to reduce this number, and you will get like a more rugged geometry rather than a smooth geometry. Now this is very helpful when it comes to creating rocks, water surface, and things like that. If you turn on fractal, let's just shoot this up to 100 again. Let's turn on fractal, and you will immediately notice there's a lot of noise being generated. By noise, I mean this bumpy surface. Again, shoot the number up, and you will see some very interesting result. You can experiment with these values, and you will see that it starts to look like this. Remember, the more segments you add, the smoother this result will be. So let's shoot this number up here, shoot this number up here, and same goes here. And you want to make sure that you're a little careful as well, because you don't want to create these kind of overlaps. So if that ever happens, you always want to go back up and reduce the axis here, and that should solve your issue. Okay, and there we go. We created something which looks a bit more organic by nature rather than just a sharp area or sharp surface. So once again, I would encourage you to experiment with that effect. So let's go further. Let's check out a few more. Apart from noise modifier, you also have something which is called a skew modifier, which allows you to distort the model this way. All right, again, experiment and see what results you guys come up with. So that's skew. Next thing would be slice, a very important modifier that will help you chop objects very quickly. So I don't know if you guys can see closely, but there's this orange plane here, and you can move this orange plane up and down. So just, you have to press that little triangle here and select the slice plane, and this will allow you to move this object up and down. Okay, now what this allows you to do is it allows you to either split the mesh. So technically it splits the mesh over here, or you can remove positive, leaving you something like this, or you can remove the negative. You can try different axes as well, X, Y, and Z, and see how it turns out for you. So you'll end up creating something like this, which is very interesting, and you can turn it off as well. You can find this very useful, especially when you're trying to make a floor which has multiple planks. So to demonstrate that very quickly, I will just create a quick example for you. So let's just say you have this plank right here, and you have created this beautiful floor that looks something like this. So just give me a few seconds. I will have something designed very quickly for the experimental purposes. I'm going to move this here, select this, shift and drag, and select all by pressing Ctrl A, and move this here. And then again, make copies. So here is my floor layout. Now, of course, I can add more if I want to, or if I wish to, but that's really subjective to your own design or whatever design you guys are working with. So you're left with something that looks like this. Now, how to clean that up? All you got to do is just first select everything, go to Modify, and apply this modifier called Slice. And you can see this plane now is sitting on the floor, the orange plane. You don't want it on Z-axis, but you would rather prefer having it on the X-axis right here. Okay, and then press this little triangle, select the slice plane, move it down here, and this will allow you to remove this area. Now you're left with the hole over here. You see that? It makes the object look hollow. You can seal this off very easily. All you have to do is just press the cap option here, and that seals it off for you. Okay, so this is sorted. Now we can do the same again by applying another slice. And again, this time we'll take the X-axis, press the slice plane option here, go move the plane up here, and say remove negative. And there we go. For floor or anything that you're trying to chop off and keep in line straight, this is how you can place things around. And last but not the least, don't forget to cap this. And there you go. You'll end up getting this beautiful floor design. Now, moving on, I'm going to delete everything and back to empty scene. Let's just throw in another cylinder. And you can see by pressing F4, I get lines on my object. Go to Modify. So we just explored Slice modifier. As you go further, there are some really nice stuff as well, more cool stuff to explore. So Taper is a very nice modifier. So as the name suggests, it tapers your object. So if you guys want to create a lampshade, a flower pot, or whatever, this is your tool. Now you also have the option to curve this. So if you crank up this value, you can curve this object as well and get something more unique looking. Okay, and you can always go down to your cylinder if you want to reduce the height segments or you want to increase the height segments. That's completely your call. You can increase some sides so it looks a lot more smoother, and you get a shape that looks like this. Again, experiment with all these features, go explore the triangle option, see what you guys come up with. So that's what I'm going to encourage you guys to do. So that was Taper for you. Let's go down further. Let's check out what else do we have in our list. We also have Twist modifier, a very beautiful modifier, and let's see what results it can create. So we're going to use for this demo a pyramid again, because that would be a better option to use. And there we go. And simply apply the Twist modifier, TWIST, and simply increase the angle, and you can quickly create this sort of an effect. It kind of looks like a whipped cream. So try this out, see how it goes. Again, try different angles if you have to, and play with the limit effect, play with this little button over here. Just experiment, get comfortable with how these options work. You can add multiple modifiers on top of a certain object. You can also apply one modifier to multiple objects as well. So for instance, if I want to use this cylinder once again, I'm going to reduce the radius. I'll just show you something very quick. Hold Shift and move to make a copy here of this cylinder, and you get something like this. Select both the cylinders, hold Shift, and make a copy again. So what we get is this kind of a setup, which is pretty cool for what I'm about to explain or show you. And right here. So once you have this, apply a twist modifier, and this will allow you to twist these cylinders together, and you kind of get this rope effect, which is pretty awesome. And the next thing you can also do is apply a bend effect. So when you apply bend, you can now bend this rope and create a nice shape. Use these tools creatively and you might land up creating some really awesome stuff. With that, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.